Okay, welcome back. Hello, it's good to have you here. Lección 38, We are progressing, we're improving, we're advancing. Okay, conquistando el inglés con un buen avance. Okay, other camera. This is a bottle of milk. Yes, this is a bottle of wine, and this is a container of coffee. Yes. This is a bottle of milk. Question. Is there any milk in the bottle? Is there any milk in the bottle? What do you think? ¿Qué crees? I don't know. I don't know. Is there any milk in the bottle? No. There isn't any milk in the bottle. There isn't any milk in the bottle. So, this isn't a bottle of milk. It's a milk bottle. It's not a bottle of milk. This is a bottle of wine. Question. Is there any wine in the bottle? What do you think? Is there any wine in this bottle? Averigüémoslo. Let's find out. No, there isn't any wine in this bottle. So, this isn't a bottle of wine. It's a wine bottle. Now, this is a container of coffee. Question. Is there any coffee in this container? I don't know. Is there any coffee in this container? Yes. Yes. There's some coffee in this container. There's some coffee in this container. All right. Question. Well, this is a magazine. It's a good magazine. This is Alberto. Alberto's crazy. All right. Yes. But this is a magazine. Question. Is there any pertinent information in this magazine? Bueno, quitando Alberto, yes, there's some pertinent information in this magazine. Is there any important information in this magazine? Yes, there's some important information in this magazine. Is there any difficult grammar? Gramática difícil in this magazine? No. Bueno, difficult? No. There isn't any difficult grammar in this magazine. There's some interesting grammar and important grammar in this magazine. Question. Is there any phonetics in this magazine? Yes, there are some phonetics in this magazine. Okay, this magazine's very good. All right. Question. This is a notebook. Is there any information in this notebook? Is there any information in this notebook? I don't know. On this page, no. On this page, no. On this page, no. The first page, no. So there isn't any information in this book. Question. Is there any butter in your refrigerator? Yes, there's some butter in my refrigerator. Is there any water in this cup? Yes. Yes, there's some water in this cup. Is there any ink in this pen? Yes, there's some ink in this pen. There's some ink in this pen. Is there any gold in this ring? Si hay algo de oro aquí. Is there any gold in this ring? Yes, there's some gold in this ring. Is there any silver in this watch? Creo que sí. Yes, there's some silver in this watch. Question. Is there any blood in your body? Si hay sangre en mi cuerpo, creo que sí. Yes, there's some blood in my body. Okay. Is there any milk in your refrigerator? Yes, there's some milk in my refrigerator. Is there any yogurt? Yogurt. Is there any yogurt in your refrigerator? Yes, there's some yogurt in my refrigerator. Is there any meat in your refrigerator? Yes, there's some meat in my refrigerator. Is there any water on the floor now? Yes. Sí hay, eh? There's some water on the floor. Al vaciar esto, cayó un poco de agua. Lo limpiaron con agua. And so there's some water on the floor. Is there any water on the table? No. There isn't any water on the table. No. There isn't any water on the table. Is there any bacteria on the table? Probably, yes. There's some bacteria on the table. Is there any coffee on the table? No. Tuve cuidado de que no cayera fuera. There isn't any coffee on the table. Is there any ink on your shirt? No. There isn't any ink on my shirt. Excuse me. Is there any ink on my chin? Hay un poco de... Más cerca. Hay un poco de tinta en la barbilla aquí. Is there any ink on my chin? No? Okay, no, there isn't any ink on my chin. Is there any ink in this pen? Yes, there's some ink in this pen. Is there any water in the Pantano de Buendia in Spain, in Guadalajara? No, there isn't any water in the Buendia Lake in Spain. Is there any water in the Entre Peñas Lake? Yes, there's some water in the Entre Peñas Lake. Is there any water in the Río Seco? Now, no, there isn't any water in the Río Seco. Is there any water in the Mississippi? Yes, there's some water in the Mississippi. Is there any reason? ¿Alguna razón? Is there any reason to study English? Yes, there are many good reasons to study English. Is there any time for this class now? No, there isn't any time. We have to go. Pero vuelva pronto. Pero mientras, compañeros míos me sustituyen y bien. Thank you.
Hello, hello. Gracias, Richard. Thank you, Richard. Soy Fitz y estamos aquí otra vez con el icono de Bauga en inglés. Jose, how are you?
Fine, and you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Are you ready?
Yes, I am.
Muy bien, ahora en casa. Are you ready? Okay. Jose. Coffee can.
There's some coffee in the can.
In the can.
In the can.
In the can. Otra vez?
There is some coffee.
There's.
Okay. There's some coffee in the can.
In the can. Ahora en casa. There's some, con M. There's some coffee in the can. The can. There's some coffee in the can. ¿Puedes decirlo otra vez, José?
Sí. There's some coffee.
Some.
There's some coffee in the can.
Muy bien, muy bien. José, is there any salt in the cellar? O como dicen los americanos y canadienses, the shaker. Pero para mí, the cellar. Is there any salt in the cellar?
¿Me preguntas?
Sí.
Yes, there is some salt in the cellar.
There's some.
Yes, there's some salt in the cellar.
Muy bien. Ahora en casa. Yes, como siempre, yes. Yes, there's some salt in the cellar. Yes, there's some salt in the cellar. Ahora, José, otra vez, un frase para ti. Wine bottle. wine bottle.
There's some wine in the bottle.
Muy bien, José, otra vez.
There's some wine in the bottle.
Muy bien. Ahora en casa. There's some, con M, there's some wine in the bottle. There's some wine. Wine in the bottle. There's some wine in the bottle. Muy bien. Ahora, José. Milk bottle.
There's some milk in the bottle.
Muy bien. Otra vez.
There's some milk in the bottle.
Muy bien. Ahora en casa. There's, como siempre, there's some, con M, milk. Milk in the bottle. There's some milk in the bottle. Una vez más. Puedes decirlo. Muy bien. Una vez más alta. Muy bien. There's some milk in the bottle. Muy bien. Ahora, José. Otra vez. Coffee y can. Con N. Can. Coffee, can.
There's some coffee in the can.
In the can. Una vez más.
There's some coffee in the can.
Muy bien. Ahora en casa. There's some coffee in the can. Con N. There's some coffee in the can. Una vez más. Y puedes repetirlo. Muy bien. There's some coffee in the can. Ahora, José. Negativos. Okay. Is there any rice on the floor? ¿Qué significa rice?
Rice, arroz.
Muy bien.
Arroz.
Okay. Is there any rice on the floor?
Floor, piso, ¿no?
Floor, suelo.
Suelo. Vale. No, there isn't any rice on the floor.
Muy bien. Una vez más.
No, there isn't any rice on the floor.
Muy bien, José. Well done. Well done. Okay. Ahora en casa. No, there isn't. There isn't, con T. There isn't any rice on the floor. No, it's in the floor, on the floor. No, there isn't any rice on the floor. Puedes decirlo otra vez. Santiago en Bilbao. Muy bien. Una vez más y más alta. No, there isn't any rice on the floor. Okay? José, are there any fingers on my hand? Are there any fingers on my hand?
¿Estás preguntando
Sí.
si hay algún dedo en tu mano?
Sí. Yes. There are.
Yes, there are some, no, 5.
Or some.
Algún-
Puedes decir some.
Okay. Yes, there are some fingers in your hand.
On your hand.
On your hand.
Una vez más.
Yes, there are some fingers on your hand.
Muy bien. On your hand. On your hand. Una vez más.
Yes, there are some fingers on your hand.
On your hand. Muy bien. Ahora en casa. Yes, there are some fingers on your hand. Yes, there are some fingers on your hand. Jose, are there any fingers on the floor? Are there any fingers on the floor?
No, there aren't. No, there aren't any.
There aren't. There aren't.
Okay. No, there aren't any fingers on the floor.
Muy bien, muy bien. No, there aren't any fingers on the floor. No, there aren't any fingers on the floor. Qué bien. No, there aren't. There aren't any fingers on the floor. On the floor. Ahora, como siempre, tienes que preguntar, tienes que practicar, tienes que cantar, gritar cada día. Os paso con Richard. Gracias.
Hello and welcome back. Let's continue. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Question, is there any olive oil in the United States? Yes, there's some olive oil in the United States. Is there any snow in the Sahara Desert? Snow? What's snow? How do you say snow in Spanish? Nieve. Ah, snow, snow, snow. What's the question? The question is there any snow in the Sahara? Sahara. No decimos Sahara, we say Sahara, con H aspirada. Is there any snow in the Sahara Desert? No, there isn't any snow in the Sahara Desert. Is there any sand in the Sahara Desert? Arena? Yes, there's some sand in the Sahara Desert. Is there any water? Is there any water in the Henadis River? Yes, there's some water in the Henadis River. Is there any milk in your house? Yes, there's some milk in my house. Is there a refrigerator in your kitchen? Yes, there's a refrigerator in my kitchen. Is there a washing machine in your kitchen? Yes, there's a washing machine in my kitchen. Is there any money? Is there any money in your bank account? Mi cuenta bancaria. Yes, there's some money in my bank account. Is there any money? Is there any money in the Bank of Spain? Yes, there's some money in the Bank of Spain. Is there any money in your pocket? Yes, there's some money in my pocket. Is there any money in this wallet? Yes, there's some money in this wallet. Is there any money on the table? No, there isn't any money on the table. There isn't any money on the table. Is there any money in the cup? No, there isn't any money in the cup. Is there any water in the cup? Yes, there's some water in the cup. Is there any whiskey in the water? Bueno, María, no creo que haya metido whisky aquí. No, there isn't any whiskey in the water. There isn't any whiskey in the water. Is there any coffee? Is there any coffee in Colombia? Yes, there's some coffee in Colombia. Is there any ink in this pen? Yes, there's some ink in this pen. Is there any? Así se dice. Is there any oil? Oil is petróleo. Is there any oil in Canada? Yes, there's some oil in Canada. Is there any oil in France? No. Como recurso natural, no. There isn't any oil in France. Is there any coal in France? Coal? What's coal? How do you say coal in Spanish? How do you say coal in Spanish? Carbón. Ah, in France. Yes, there's some coal in France. Is there any coal in Spain? Yes, there's some coal in Spain. Is there any coal in Segovia? No, there isn't any coal in Segovia. Is there any coal in León? Yes, there's some coal in León. Is there any coal in Ciudad Real? Yes, there's some coal in Ciudad Real. Is there any mercury in Spain? Yes, there's some mercury in Spain. Is there any wheat in Spain? Wheat? Wheat? How do you say wheat in Spanish? Trigo. Ah, yes, there's some wheat in Spain. Is there any cotton in Spain? Cotton? How do you say cotton? Cotton in Spanish. Algodón. Ah, cotton. Cotton, algodón. Okay, yes. There's some cotton in Spain. Is there any corn in Spain? Corn? How do you say corn? How do you say corn in Spanish? Maíz. Ah, maíz. Corn's maíz. How do you spell corn? C-O-R-N. Okay. Yes, there's some corn in Spain. Is there any sorghum in Spain? Sorghum? How do you say sorghum in Spanish? Sorgo? Yes, there's some sorghum in Spain. Is there any olive oil in Spain? Yes, there is some olive oil in Spain. Is there any saffron in Spain? Saffron? How do you say saffron in Spanish? Azafrán. Ah, how do you spell saffron? S-A-F-F-R-O-N. Saffron. So, what's the question? Is there any saffron in Spain? Yes, there is some saffron in Spain. Is there any copper in Spain? Copper? Copper? How do you say copper in Spanish? Cobre. Ah, how do you spell copper? C-O-P-P-E-R, copper. Yes, okay, what's the question? Is there any copper in Spain? Yes, there's some copper in Spain. Is there any iron in Spain? Iron? Iron? How do you say iron in Spanish? Hierro? Ah, iron. No. Iron, no. Iron. ¿Cómo? Iron. Yo, como si dijeras, yo gano. I earn. Acentuando I. Iron. Iron. Eso es hierro. How do you spell it? I-R-O-N. Oh, what's the question? Is there any iron in Spain? Iron, 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 iron. Yes, there's some iron in Spain. Is there any gold in Spain? Gold, like oro. No, there isn't any gold. Los romanos los trajeron todo. There isn't any gold in Spain. Is there any silver in Spain? Silver? How do you say silver in Spanish? Plata. Ah. Oh, how do you spell it? S-I-L-V-E-R. Okay, good. Excuse me, what's the question? Is there any silver in Spain? No, there isn't any silver in Spain. Okay. Yes. Is there any English in Spain? Yes, there is some English in Spain. Okay. Is there any time to continue? No, there isn't any time. A break. Tenemos que romper, pero enseguida volvemos. No os vayáis. Thank you. Okay, 1 minute. Is there any gold? Oro. Hay oro en España. Is there any gold in Spain? No, there isn't any gold in Spain. Is there any gold in Russia? Yes, there's some gold in Russia. Is there any gold in Ireland? No, there isn't any gold in Ireland. Is there any gold in South Africa? Yes, there's some gold in South Africa. Is there any gold in the United States? Yes, there's some gold in the United States. Is there any gold? Is there any gold in Norway? No, there isn't any gold in Norway. Lentamente vamos a ir acostumbrándonos a estas formas, estos sonidos, hasta que sea un sexto sentido. Some, me, any. Y vamos a seguir con ello. Thank you.
Gracias, Richard. Soy Kyle. Una vez más, estoy aquí con mi alumna, Pilar. Pilar, hello.
Hello. Hi.
How are you?
Fine, thank you. And you, Kyle?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Ahora vamos a practicar con las palabras some y any y cosas incontables. Por ejemplo, sal. Sal. No podemos contar sal. Is there, Pilar, is there any salt in the shaker? Se llama un shaker. Salt shaker. To shake. To shake. Shaker. Is there any salt in the salt shaker?
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. Digamos is. No se puede decir are porque no podemos contar el sal. Los granos sí, pero hay miles de granos, ¿no? De sal. Yes, there is. Is there any salt in the shaker? Yes, there is. Vino. Is there any wine in the bottle?
No, there isn't.
No, there isn't. Is there any wine in the bottle? No, there isn't. There isn't any wine in the bottle. Bueno. Is there any water? Yeah. Is there any water in the cup?
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. Yes, there is some. Se puede decir some. Sí, hay agua. Yes, there is some. There is some water in the cup. There isn't any wine in the bottle, but there is some water in the cup. Prefiero el vino, ¿no?
Yes.
Mejor el vino, pero no hay.
Mejor. No hay.
Is there any pepper in the shaker? The pepper shaker? Is there any pepper?
Yes, there is some.
Yes, there is some pepper. There is some pepper in the shaker. Ok. Ahora, Pilar, pregúntame. Hay muchas cosas aquí por la mesa.
Ok.
Pregúntame.
Is there any milk in the bottle?
In the bottle. Is there any milk in the bottle? No. There isn't.
No, 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 no.
No, there isn't any milk in the bottle. There isn't any milk in the bottle.
Is there any oil in the can?
In the can. Is there any oil in the can? No, there isn't. There isn't any oil in the can.
Is there any salt in the shake?
In the shaker?
In the shaker.
Yes, there is. There is some salt in the shaker. Ahora en casa, is there any salt in the shaker? Is there any salt in the shaker? Yes, there is. There is some salt in the shaker. There's, con la contracción otra vez, there's some salt in the shaker. Mejor, ¿no?
Okay.
There's some salt in the shaker.
Okay.
There isn't any wine in the bottle, but there's some salt in the shaker. Is there any pepper in the shaker? Is there any pepper in the shaker? Yes. Y en casa, en voz alta, como siempre, siempre en voz alta. Is there any pepper in the shaker? Yes, there is some pepper in the shaker. Ahora pregúntame. Con el vino, pregúntame. Ask me. Kyle, ask me. ¿Y cuál es la pregunta?
Is there any wine in the bottle?
Is there any wine in the bottle? No, there isn't any. There isn't any wine in the bottle. Is there any wine in the bottle? No, there isn't any wine in the bottle.
Okay.
También eso. ¿Qué es eso?
For sugar.
Café.
Ah, no. Café.
Sí, café, pero... No. Sí,
Yes,
sí, yeah.
Yes.
Is there any coffee in the can?
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is some coffee in the can.
Yes, there is some coffee. There's some coffee in the can. ¿Con la contracción?
There's some coffee in the can.
There's some coffee in the can. There's some coffee in the can. Is there any coffee in the can? Yes, there is. There's some coffee in the can. ¿Y eso?
Bread.
Bread, pregúntame.
Is there any bread on the table?
¿Y en casa? Otra vez, pregúntame eso. Kyle, is there any bread on the table? Is there any bread on the table? ¿Y mi respuesta? Yes, there is. Yes, there is some bread. There's some bread on the table. Hay dos trozos. There are two pieces. Se puede contar pieces, trozos. Pero el pan, no. There's some bread. There are two pieces. There is some bread. There's some salt in the shaker. There's some water in the glass, or the cup. In the cup. There's some water in the cup. Ask me about this.
Is there any wine in the bottle?
Is there any wine in the bottle? No, there isn't any wine in the bottle. Is there any oil in the can?
No, there isn't. There isn't any oil in the can.
In the can, okay. Ask me. More questions.
Is there any milk in the bottle?
Is there any milk in the bottle? No, there isn't any milk in the bottle. There isn't any milk in the bottle. More questions.
Is there any water in the cup?
Yes, yes. There's some water in the cup. There's some water in the cup. ¿Y en casa? There's some water in the cup. Muy bien. Otra pregunta.
Is there any oil
Any.
in the can?
any. En la pregunta, any. Is there any oil in the can? Is there any oil in the can? Yes. Oh,
No.
oh no.
There is-
There isn't any oil in the can. Is there any coffee in the can?
Yes, there is some coffee in the can.
Okay. Ahora en casa.
Paper.
Ask me. Pregúntame. Ahora pregúntame.
Is there any milk in the bottle?
Is there any milk in the bottle? ¿Has dicho eso? Is there any milk in the bottle? No. There isn't any milk in the bottle. Is there any salt in the shaker?
Yes, there is some salt in the shaker.
There's some salt in the shaker. Pregúntame. Is there any pepper in the shaker? ¿Otra vez? Muy bien. Is there any pepper in the shaker? Yes, there is. There's some pepper in the shaker. Is there any wine in the bottle?
No, there isn't any wine in the bottle.
There isn't any wine in the bottle. Ya hemos terminado. There isn't any wine in the bottle. Bueno, muy bien. Muy bien hecho en casa. Y ahora os dejo otra vez con Richard.
Hello and welcome back. Okay, are there any keys in my hand? Yes, there are some keys in my hand. Are there any keys on this telephone? Teclas. Yes, there are some keys on this telephone. Okay. Is there any water in this glass, in this cup? Yes, there is some water in this cup. Estoy mezclando. Ahora algo nuevo. Seguimos allí. Okay. Escuchad bien. There is some water in this cup. There isn't any water on the floor. There are some people in the next room. There aren't any people in that room. There are some cameras in front of me. There aren't any cameras behind me. There are some big cities. There are some big cities in Spain. There aren't any big cities in Liechtenstein. There are some important banks in Spain. There aren't any important banks in Greenland. There are some important people in my family. There aren't any important people in your family, por ejemplo. There are some criminals in your family. There aren't any criminals in my family. There are some good English teachers in Baugan Systems. There aren't any good English teachers in the competitors. Okay? There are some good television technicians in this studio. There aren't any good television technicians in the Antarctic. Okay? There are some animals in the zoo. There are some animals in the zoo. There aren't any animals in this room. There are some elephants in the zoos in Spain. There aren't any elephants in this television studio. There are some good students. There are some good students in Granada. There aren't any good students in Antarctica. There are some giraffes in Africa. Jirafas, giraffes. There aren't any giraffes. There aren't any giraffes in Alaska. Pobres. There aren't any giraffes in Alaska. There are, plural. Hay jirafas en África. There are some giraffes, or there are many giraffes, a lot of giraffes in Africa. Hay llaves en mi llavero. There are keys on my key ring. Hay teclas en mi teléfono. There are some keys on my telephone. Hay agua en mi taza. There is some water, porque es incontable singular aquí. There is some water in my cup. Entonces, There is, para contables e incontables, en un caso con a o an, there is an elephant in the next room. There isn't an elephant in this room. Ahora, incontables. Hay agua en la habitación de al lado, pero no hay agua en esta. There is some water in that room, but there isn't any water in this room. Ahora, saltamos a plurales. Contables, por supuesto, si no, no pueden ser plurales. There are some olive trees, olivos. There are some olive trees in Jaén. There aren't any olive trees in Iceland, Islandia. There are some volcanoes in Iceland, but there aren't any volcanoes in Spain. There is some olive oil in Jaén, but there isn't any olive oil. There isn't any olive oil in Tierra del Fuego. There are some Eskimos in Alaska, but there aren't any Eskimos in Motril. Okay, there are some palm trees, palmeras. There are some palm trees in Motril, but there aren't any palm trees in this room. There are some intelligent people in Cáceres, but there aren't any intelligent people on Jupiter, in Júpiter. No, on Jupiter there aren't any intelligent people. There is some oxygen, oxígeno. There is some oxygen in this room, but there isn't any oxygen on the moon. Okay? There is some sunlight outside, but there isn't any sunlight here in this studio. There is some butter in my refrigerator, but there isn't any butter on this table. Okay? There is some ink in this pen, but there isn't any ink in this cup. There's some water in this cup, but there isn't any water on the table. Okay? There are some people in the next room, in that room, but there aren't any people in that room. Okay? There are some calendars on that wall, but there aren't any calendars on the wall behind me. There are some cameras in front of me, but there aren't any cameras behind me. Question: are there any olive trees in Spain? Yes, there are some olive trees in Spain. Are there any olive trees in Finland? No. Olivos in Finlandia? No. There aren't any olive trees in Finland. Are there any Eskimos in Alaska? Yes, there are some Eskimos in Alaska. Are there any Eskimos in Spain? No, there aren't any Eskimos in Spain. Are there any gypsies in Spain? Gypsies? How do you say gypsies in Spanish? Gypsies? Gitanos? How do you say it? How do you pronounce it? Gypsies. Gypsies. How do you spell it? Singular. In the singular, G-Y-P. Y? What's Y? Y. G-Y-P-S-Y. And how do you pronounce it? Gypsy. A ver? Gypsy. Okay. What's the question? Are there any gypsies in Spain? Yes, there are some gypsies in Spain. Are there any gypsies on Mars? En Marte, seguro que sí. No, there aren't any gypsies on Mars. Okay, I'll be back in a few minutes, but in the meantime, more teachers. Thank you.
Gracias, Richard. Yo soy David Waddell y vamos a practicar todo lo que hemos visto con Richard. Estoy aquí con mi alumna Pilar. ¿Qué tal, Pilar?
Muy bien, David.
¿Sí, segura?
Segura.
Muy bien. Entonces, primero vamos a ver 5 palabras. 4, 5. 1, 2, 4, 5.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Es que estoy liado completamente. Como siempre, con el vocabulario estoy... Bueno, ok, la primera palabra es holiday. Holiday. ¿Qué significa holiday? Holiday.
Un día de fiesta.
Un día festivo o vacaciones también,
Ok.
o esas cosas. Ok, la segunda palabra es important. Important. ¿Qué significa important?
Importante.
Importante, importante. Ok, en casa, important. Repeat, important, important. 2 T's, important. ¿Otra vez, Pilar?
Important.
¿Otra vez?
Important.
Important, important. No decimos en casa por important, ¿no? Important, important. Ok, la tercera palabra es Japan, Japan, Japan. ¿Qué significa Japan?
Japón.
Japón, Japan, Japan en casa, Japan, repeat, Japan, Japan. Ok, la cuarta palabra, yo tengo ahora, ok, es kind, kind. ¿Qué significa kind?
Tipo, clase.
Tipo, clase, y también como adjetivo significa amable.
Sí.
Fíjate, pero tipo o clase, kind, kind.
Ok.
Ok, y la quinta palabra, sí, lo tengo ahora, la quinta palabra es lemon, lemon. ¿Qué significa lemon?
Limón.
Limón, limón, lemon. En casa, repítelo, lemon, lemon. Ok, repasamos, ok. La primera palabra es holiday. La segunda, important. La tercera, Japan. La cuarta, kind. Y la quinta, lemon, lemon. 5 palabras, solo 5. Es muy fácil aprender 5 palabras por día, no es demasiado, ¿no?
No, no.
No, muy bien. Ok, ahora tenemos muchas cosas, ¿no? Muchísimas cosas. Y muchas cosas en plural. Por ejemplo, there are some magazines. There are some magazines on the table. On the table. There are some magazines on the table. Repeat, Pilar.
There are some magazines on the table.
Otra vez.
There are some magazines on the table.
Ok, ¿qué ha dicho Pilar? Ha dicho there are some.
Ah.
Some, ¿qué significa some? No existe.
No.
Some.
Yes.
Some. So, dilo otra vez, Pilar.
There are some magazines on the table.
There are some magazines on the table. Muy bien, en casa, repítelo. There are some magazines on the table. A ver. Some? No, some. Some magazines on the table. Muy bien. Una vez más, Pilar.
Okay. There are some magazines on the table.
Muy bien, es muy importante decir la M muy claramente. Some magazines. En este caso, some magazines se junta. Some magazines on the table. A ver, ¿qué está en el suelo? There are some toys on the floor. There are some toys on the floor. Some toys. Repítalo.
There are some toys on the floor.
Otra vez.
There are some toys on the floor.
¿Qué diferencia
Yes.
entre some y some?
Okay.
Otra vez.
There are some magazines. Oh no, there are some toys on the floor.
Muy bien. Ahora voy a hacerte una pregunta. Are there any toys on the table? Are there any toys on the table? Are there any toys on the table? Pilar?
No, there aren't.
No, there aren't. Repítalo.
No, there aren't.
Again.
No, there aren't.
Okay, en casa. No, there aren't. No, there aren't. No, there aren't. Aren't.
No.
Suena horrible. Aren't. No. No, there aren't. Are there any toys on the table? No, there aren't. No, there aren't. Okay, Pilar. Are there any magazines on the table?
Yes, there are.
Otra vez.
Yes, there are.
Yes, there are. Otra vez.
Yes, there are.
Okay, muy bien. En casa, are there any magazines on the table? Yes, there are. Yes, there are. There are 3 magazines on the table. Yes, yes, there are. Okay. Are there any magazines on the floor? Are there any magazines on the floor, Pilar?
No, there aren't any magazine on the floor.
No, there aren't. Just repeat
okay.
esto, vale.
No, there aren't.
Again.
No, there aren't.
Okay, en casa, are there any magazines on the floor? No, there aren't. No, there aren't. No, there aren't. No, there aren't. Or no, there aren't. Yeah, no, there aren't. Aren't, no. Aren't suena horrible. Aren't es prohibido completamente. Okay?
Okay.
Muy bien. Okay, so vamos a repasar. There are some toys on the floor. There are some toys on the floor. And there are some magazines on the table. Okay, repítalo. There are some toys on the floor and there are some magazines on the table. A ver, vamos a escuchar. Some, no, some. Venga. Bien, okay. Repítalo tú.
Yes. There are some magazines on the table and there are some toys on the floor.
Otra vez.
There are some magazines on the table and there are some toys on the floor.
Some toys?
Some toys on the floor.
Otra vez.
There are some magazines on the table and there are some toys on the floor.
Good. There are some magazines on the table and there are some toys on the floor. Ahora escucha. There aren't any magazines on the floor and there aren't any toys on the table. Otra vez. There aren't any magazines on the floor and there aren't any toys on the table. Repítalo.
Okay.
No, en casa primero. Bien, okay. Ahora Pilar.
There aren't any magazines on the floor and there aren't any toys on the table.
Muy bien. Otra vez en casa, repítalo. There aren't any magazines on the floor and there aren't any toys on the table. Muy bien, okay. Repítalo cientos de veces. Es muy importante, practícalo en casa, siempre. Y os dejo con Richard. Muchas gracias.
Is there, are there. ¿Cuántas veces en el día, hablando en castellano, en vuestro propio idioma, cuántas veces decís la palabra hay? Ay, Canti, no llores, pero no es hay con H, hay. Uy, hay un problema. No, hay posibilidad, hay. ¿Cuántas veces? Seguro que en una conversación normal de 10 minutos seguidos, la palabra hay se dice o se oye 50 veces o 20 veces en 10 minutos. Imaginad cuántas veces por semana, por mes o por año tenéis que oír y entender o usar hay, solo en el tiempo presente. Pues en inglés, there is and there are. Is there, are there isn't, there aren't. Hay que aprender esto como la palma de la mano. Hay que aprender a manejarlo con una agilidad completa. Sí. Entonces tenéis que estudiar y tenéis que ayudarnos a nosotros a conseguir un éxito con este programa. Por favor. Tenemos mucho en juego todos a trabajar. Thank you.